Welcome to the Shorten Anime channel. Today we'll dive into the latest episode of The Great Ruler. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to support the channel. The Great Ruler, Season 1, Episode 8. Surprise surged through Mu Chen's mind. It was evident that this sudden breakthrough was completely outside his expectation. He originally thought that it would take at least 10 days before he broke through to the foundation level. Mu Chen was surprised for a while. However, he gradually calmed down and did not dare to be careless. He hurried to recover his focus and began to sense the wonderful feeling vigilantly. Within his aura C, the dark black spiritual energy was bubbling. While it was bubbling, Mu Chen was able to feel that the density of the spiritual energy was increasing rapidly. Moreover, Mu Chen was able to sense that a powerful absorption seemed to have erupted inside his body, and it greedily sucked in the spiritual aura outside. After being refined by the great pagoda art, traces of dark black spiritual energy entered his aura C. While he was sensing the rapidly increasing spiritual energy within his aura C, a comfortable feeling flowed through Mu Chen's four limbs. And while Mu Chen was immersed in the pleasurable feeling of the spiritual art's breakthrough, the entire cultivation field also suddenly stirred. This is because everybody was able to feel a powerful suction erupting from within Mu Chen's body. It used an arrogant and forceful attitude to steal the dense spiritual aura within the cultivation field. This movement instantly attracted everybody's attention. Many individuals glanced through the field with astonished eyes, and it landed at Mu Chen's body in the end. What's happening? It was caused by that Mu Chen. What is he doing? What a domineering absorption. He is actually to absorb the spiritual aura of the world this outrageously? Is he not afraid of dying? Numerous whispers exploded throughout the cultivation field. Everybody had an alarmed expression. It was evident that it was their first time seeing this situation. Mu Chen. Tang Qianer also widened her eyes and stared worriedly at Mu Chen. Do not panic. At this moment, Teacher Mo's calm voice rang out. It overshadowed the whispers and calmed many heaven-class students. Then he turned his gaze towards Mu Chen and frowned slightly as he said, "It's not a big deal. The spiritual art he trained in had a breakthrough." The spiritual art he trained in? Many students were stunned once again. A spiritual art's breakthrough would actually cause such a commotion. Just what is the level of the spiritual art that Mu Chen trained in? It seems to be a spiritual art that it is at least spiritual rank middle tier. Zhang Li and Teng Yong both had a shocked expression as they stared at Mu Chen, who caused this great commotion. A hint of panic flowed through their eyes. Although they were also at the spiritual movement stage middle phase, they could feel the enormous pressure coming from Mu Chen's body. It seems that his father prepared a pretty good spiritual art for him. Luotong let out a cold His words were filled with unwillingness and jealousy. The spiritual art that he trained in wasn't weak. It had reached the spiritual rank low tier. But it seems that there was still a gap between the one that Mu Chen trained in. This made Luotong extremely frustrated. Compared to Mu Chen, he did not have any points that he would excel at, aside from age. Teacher Mo carefully watched Mu Chen, who was greedily sucking in the spiritual aura. He could not help but let out a sound of praise. He was able to sense that the Gongfa spiritual art Mu Chen trained in was not something ordinary. However, he was different than a shallow person like Luotong. As the spiritual art becomes higher in rank, it would become harder to train. A breakthrough would be something even harder. Mu Chen had probably only trained in this spiritual art for no more than a month, yet he was able to have a breakthrough. This talent is quite extraordinary. As expected from a person who obtained the qualifications for the spiritual road, Teacher Mo smiled. Although he lost a year of training when he was at the spiritual road, it would not be hard for Mu Chen to chase up with his talents. It seems that the West Branch's Lu Mubai had finally met his opponent. Mu Chen naturally did not know about the commotion in the cultivation field. He was still immersed in the wonderful feeling as his spiritual art made a breakthrough. The spiritual aura that flowed into his body turned into traces of dark black spiritual energy and entered his aura C. This refreshing feeling made Mu Chen feel completely relaxed. Mu Chen's mind entered the aura C. The traces of dark black spiritual energy had now become a small form. The spiritual energy would wrap around each other in spirals. It was like a black nebula, mysterious and unpredictable. Above the spiritual energy, a piece of black paper quietly floated there. It let the spiritual energy flow around it and remained motionless as if it was a dead object. The dark black spiritual energy circulated inside Mu Chen's aura sea. Suddenly, a buzzing sound rang out in the depths of his soul. This made him shocked, and he immediately scanned inside his body. He actually discovered that dark black lights suddenly lit up in his body. Swoosh! The spiritual energy in his aura sea also seemed to activate at this moment. It surged out of his aura sea and flowed through his meridians smoothly. When the spiritual energy passed through the dark black lights, Mu Chen was able to feel vaguely that the black color lights absorbed some of the spiritual energy. What is this all about? This sudden turn of events shocked Mu Chen. These black lights appeared too suddenly, and it seemed to be out of his control. He was not able to detect them as well. Could it be because of the Great Pagoda art? Mu Chen thought quickly. Then an idea flashed through his mind. It was obvious that this change was related to his Great Pagoda art reaching the foundation level. These lights! Mu Chen's mind swept through the mysterious black lights across his body. He pondered for a while, and then he violently trembled. He noticed that if he was able to connect the black lights, it seemed to be a bit like a spiritual pulse? Spiritual pulse? This phrase flashed through Mu Chen's mind and flooded his mind with questions. He knew that he did not possess even the lowest level, human-level spiritual pulse. To confirm this result, he checked it many times. However, what on earth are these black lights that appeared in his body and seemed like a spiritual pulse? When Mu Chen's mind was completely filled with shock, these black lights seemed to vanish quietly like an epiphyllum. No matter how Mu Chen tried to sense it, he could not perceive it at all. It was as if it had never existed in the first place. How could this be? Mu Chen muttered inside his heart and was completely confused. After a long time, he began to carefully analyze it. The scene earlier was definitely not an illusion. In the depths of his body, something that he could not detect was definitely hidden inside. And this concealment might have some relationship to the Great Pagoda art. The Great Pagoda art. Could it be Mother? Mu Chen's heart trembled. The Great Pagoda art was left behind by his mother. If that's the case, then it must be related to his mother. Perhaps his mother hid something within his body. But why would she do that? Mu Chen thought for a while, but he could not come up with any answers. He had too little memories about his mother. There was only a vague yet gentle existence in the depths of his heart. However, he did not understand much about it. The hidden spiritual pulse feeling did make Mu Chen believe one point doubtlessly. His mother would never do anything that would harm him. When he thought about this, Mu Chen's heart gradually calmed down. No matter how irrational his prediction was, it would be fine if he believed that it would not harm him. As for the other points, he could ask his dad when he returned back home. He felt that his dad should know a bit about this, but he had not mentioned it to him yet. While thinking about this, Mu Chen also circulated his state of mind. He allowed the traces of dark black spiritual energy to be absorbed into his aura sea and left the cultivation state. His tightly closed eyes also slowly opened up. When he opened his eyes, Mu Chen could feel that something was off. He was immediately surprised when he saw the numerous gazes fixed onto his body. What is it? Mu Chen blinked his eyes. He was quite puzzled about the gazes staring at him. When the surrounding students heard his words, their faces were quite strange. You've caused such a big commotion, yet you didn't even know? Mu Chen, are you all right? Tang Chener asked worriedly. Then she explained the situation that previously occurred. I'm fine. Mu Chen suddenly smiled as he shook his head. This spiritual art breakthrough must have been related to the spirit convergence array. Otherwise, it would take a bit of time before he reached the foundation level. A third-rank spirit convergence array was definitely quite extraordinary. Today's cultivation lesson will end now. You can make your own arrangements for the time afterwards. When Teacher Mo noticed that Mu Chen had woken up, he gave him a nod before he spoke to the crowd. Yes! Many students respectfully responded. Teacher Mo waved his hand, and he did not wait as he walked leisurely out. As Teacher Mo left, the atmosphere within the cultivation field gradually relaxed. Sounds of laughter spread out, but many gazes were still fixed on Mu Chen. Perhaps it was because the commotion caused by Mu Chen was too shocking. Even after Teacher Mo left, Luo Tong, Zhang Li, and the others did not come looking for trouble with him. Instead, they glanced sullenly at him in fear and immediately shifted their gaze away. Let's go as well. Mu Chen stood up and clapped his hands as he spoke. Where are we going? Tang Xianer asked. Let's go take a stroll to the spiritual art room. Mu Chen stared at the other side of the cultivation field and smiled slightly. I am quite interested in a few attack spiritual arts there. Right now, I can finally train in them. The Spiritual Arts Room. It is the place where the Northern Spiritual Academy's spiritual art collection is located at. The Spiritual Arts Room is also divided into Heaven level and Earth level. An Earth class student can only enter the Earth level to search for spiritual arts. If they want to enter the Heaven level, then they must ascend to the Heaven class. The spiritual art that Mu Chen wanted was in the Heaven level collection. He had entered the Heaven level once under Teacher Mo's guidance approximately half a year ago. There he discovered a spiritual art that he liked. However, he could only temporarily give it up as he did not reach the requirements. And now Mu Chen, who had satisfied the requirements, would naturally think about this attack spiritual art right away. Mu Chen and Tang Chen headed off to the spiritual arts room. On the other hand, Tan Qingshan did not follow as he said that he wanted to train for a bit longer. He was a man of few words, but he was quite stubborn. When he was still in the Earth class, he was considered quite outstanding. But once he entered the Heaven class, he suddenly fell to the bottom. This difference became his motivation. In the spacious spiritual arts room, many Northern Spiritual Academy students were reading the spiritual arts. After all, not every single person had a Northern Spiritual Realm's territory lord as their father. Therefore, many students could only obtain spiritual arts through the spiritual arts room. However, it was naturally worse than the carefully prepared spiritual arts that Mu Chen and the others could access. Of course, this does not mean that the Northern Spiritual Academy's collection is inferior to the territory lords within the Northern Spiritual Realm. It was the exact opposite. Based on what Mu Chen knew, the true collection within the Northern Spiritual Academy was probably something that his father's collection couldn't compare with. However, those spiritual arts were not something that a common student can see. The spiritual arts room's Earth level was lively and bustling. When Mu Chen and Tang Qian entered, they attracted a lot of attention. It was evident that Mu Chen was known throughout the Northern Spiritual Academy after the battle during the Academy competition. Brother Mu! It was fine when the West Branch students saw Mu Chen. Their eyes would be filled with fear and curiosity. However, the East Branch students would have thrilled expression and greeted him with excitement. A few charming girls would even peek at the boy with black hair and black eyes, handsome face, and a brilliant smile, which emitted warmth to their hearts as they flipped through the spiritual arts. Then, their faces would turn slightly red. Mu Chen directed a gentle smile towards the East Branch students, but he did not remain there for long. He directly passed through the Earth level with Tang Qian and headed to the spiritual arts room's second level. Heaven level. As the two individuals departed, whispers erupted in the Earth level. Brother Mu really ascended to the Heaven class. He is actually able to enter the spiritual arts room Heaven level. Ha ha ha. Brother Mu's performance at the Academy competition was so perfect. Would it even be difficult for him to enter the Heaven class? There are many powerful individuals in the Heaven class. It was said that the Heaven class's Luo Tong tried to trouble Brother Mu today. That guy is at the level of a spiritual movement stage late phase. Luo Tong! He's only a person who would flaunt his father's title around. How could he compare to Brother Mu? And that guy isn't even eligible to enter the 5 great academies. Yes, the one who is best qualified to compete with Lu Mubai in the Northern Spiritual Academy is probably Brother Mu. Oh ho ho, I think that there would be a good show when they compete for a place in the 5 great academies. I didn't expect you to be that popular in the Earth class. As the two of them walked up to the Heaven level, Tang Qian glanced below and said with a tender smile. Mu Chen also smiled, but he was not willing to say anything about it. He turned his gaze towards the Heaven level. This place was not as spacious as the Earth level. There were also far less people here. However, they would still be able to see a figure walking around from time to time. What spiritual art did you want? I think that a Mu territory's young master would not care about a common tier spiritual art? Tang Qian's eyes swept through the Heaven level as she playfully asked. However, if it's the spiritual tier spiritual arts, then based on what I know, there are only 6 of them in the Heaven level. They are all spiritual tier low-rank spiritual arts. Which one did you like? And if you want to read the spiritual tier spiritual art, you must have Teacher Mo's consent. It seems that you know this place quite well. However, the one I want aren't the spiritual arts that you mentioned. Mu Chen let out a mysterious smile, and he walked to the west corner of the spiritual arts room. Tang Qian was a bit puzzled as she followed him over. This location wasn't where the high-ranked spiritual arts were located at in the spiritual arts room. They were all just common tier spiritual arts. Although it included a few powerful spiritual arts, with Mu Chen's viewpoint, there should be many within the Mu territory if he only wanted common tier spiritual arts. They are just a few ordinary common tier spiritual arts. It can't be that you wanted these spiritual arts, right? Tang Qian'er's slender hand picked up a jaded script and asked with a frown. Mu Chen's face had a smile on it. His long fingers went across the cold stone surface and extended into the depths of the stone cabinet. When he pulled out his fingers, a dark red jaded script was stuck between his fingers. This is... Tang Qian'er was stunned when she saw that. Her eyes immediately turned serious when she saw the color of the jaded script. This is because the spiritual arts with that color has a special title to it. It was known as Hazard Potential Spiritual Arts. The so-called Hazard Potential Spiritual Arts represents that there is quite a bit of danger when training in this spiritual art. It might even harm the practitioners as well. Let me see that. Tang Qian'er extended her hand and snatched the dark red jaded script away from Mu Chen's hand. She glanced across it and saw that it emitted a few cold-blooded words on its surface. Common tier high rank, limitless death seal. Limitless death seal? Tang Qian'er's face finally changed. Her eyes widened up and she stared furiously at Mu Chen as she spoke. What are you playing? You dare practice this spiritual art? The name of the limitless death seal, she had naturally heard of it before. Although it was a common tier, high-rank spiritual art, it was a spiritual art that was extremely vicious within the Northern Spiritual Academy. This is not because it was incredibly amazing, but because two gifted and outstanding students had once trained in it. The result ended with their meridians snapping, and they nearly became useless. Since then, nobody dared to train in this spiritual art. I've investigated this spiritual art before. It is actually quite amazing. However, there's a condition for you to train in this spiritual art. That is, it requires a domineering spiritual energy. The spiritual energy of the two seniors that trained in it before did not reach that level of domination. This is why they failed, Mu Chen explained. The dark black spiritual energy he had was far from any ordinary spiritual energy. With its overbearing nature, the great pagoda art that he trained in right now should be capable of this limitless death seal. Not allowed! Tang Qian'er had a straight face, and she batted an eye towards Mu Chen and said, "And you don't have the qualifications to read this spiritual art anyways." There were also rules regarding about reading the spiritual arts within the spiritual arts room. If it was just any ordinary common tier, any students could read it. But if it was spiritual tier, you must ask for permission from the teachers. Although this limitless death seal only seemed to be a common tier high rank, it was classified as a hazard potential spiritual art. If you wish to read this spiritual art, you must be a student who had stayed in the heaven class for half a year. Since Mu Chen had just ascended up, he clearly wasn't qualified. Mu Chen's black eyes contained traces of a smile as he stared at Tang Qian'er. He jokingly said, "That is why I brought you over here. I wanted you to help me borrow this spiritual art." Tang Qian'er's beautiful eyes could not help but widen up. She stared at Mu Chen, gritted her teeth as she tilted her head away. "You want me to help you? No way!" "Sister Qian'er, help me out, please." Mu Chen's body leaned slightly forward. His handsome face was close to the girl's pretty face. The hot air that came from his breath landed on her bouncy cheeks. Tang Qian'er was startled by his action and retreated a few steps backwards. Her face was like a sunset and she embarrassingly said, "You rascal." Mu Chen shrugged his shoulders and his black eyes stared at Tang Qian'er. He softly said, "I really want to train in this spiritual art. Believe in me, it will be fine, okay?" Tang Qian'er nibbled her red lips as if she was hesitating. After all, this spiritual art had quite the vicious name. If Mu Chen also became like the two seniors from before, she really couldn't imagine how dire the consequences would be. "Huh? Mu Chen, you're also here?" And just when Tang Qian'er hesitated, a soft voice rang out suddenly from behind. Mu Chen and Tang Qian'er lifted their heads. They saw Hong Ling, who was extremely charming, in a red dress standing there. When Mu Chen noticed Hong Ling, he was stunned for a bit. This seemed to be the first time that Hong Ling had greeted him since he had entered the Northern Spiritual Academy. Although they were rather close when they were young, they drifted apart later. Right now, she felt more like a stranger. "Hello, Senior Hong Ling." Mu Chen also smiled and called out Senior Hong Ling. This made Tang Qian'er relax her straightened face. By greeting her this way, it was evident that they weren't close. It was more like being polite. Hong Ling's beautiful eyes flashed for a moment, She immediately looked at the dark red jaded script held within Tang Qianer's hand and seemed to understand something. She smiled and said, "What is it? You want to borrow this hazard potential spiritual art? Do you need my help?" Mu Chen glanced at Tang Qianer for a moment. These two girls disliked each other. Sure enough, the latter had a cold expression. He turned his head back and smiled as he spoke. "Thank you for your kindness, Senior. But Sister Qianer has already promised to help me." Hong Ling nodded. She looked at Boy with a gentle smile, handsome appearance, and a long body. Her heart felt slightly sour. The ordinary boy that she did not pay attention to had suddenly become outstanding without her knowing. "Then that's okay. I won't disturb you." Hong Ling directed a smile to Mu Chen. Then she did not remain at this location. She turned her body around and left. Her slim and charming body attracted countless gazes from nearby boys who were reading the spiritual arts. In the end, the boys all gave a jealous glance towards Mu Chen. This guy is really too lucky. He had some sort of relationship with both flowers of the Northern Spiritual Academy. "When did I agree to help you?" Seeing that Hong Ling departed, Tang Qianer let out a sigh and spoke. "I guess I can only ask Senior Hong Ling then," Mu Chen said helplessly. "You dare do that?" Tang Qianer hurried and said it out loud. But seeing Mu Chen's playful expression, her face turned red, and she gritted her teeth in anger. She said, "I can help you, but you have to promise me this. If you find anything wrong with it, you must immediately stop training in it." Mu Chen nodded his head. Also, Tang Qianer's beautiful eyes swept across Mu Chen, and her pretty face revealed a sweet smile. "You have to form a team with me during the Northern Spiritual Field training half a month later." That wraps up the content for today's episode. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel to get notifications for the next episode. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.